I came home for Christmas. The house was empty, except for Grandma eating leftovers. A note said, "Spent your $9,500 loan on a family cruise. Take care of her." Grandma said, "We'll fix this." I just nodded. 4 days later, they were begging. The turkey was cold. That's the first thing I noticed. Not the silence, not the absence of cars in the driveway, not the way the house felt hollow even before I opened the door. Just the turkey, sitting in a foil pan on the kitchen counter, picked over and abandoned like roadkill. I'd driven 11 hours through sleet and construction zones, and that stretch of I-70 where my wipers gave out, and I had to pull over at a truck stop in Zanesville to buy replacements from a guy named Earl who charged me $40 and told me I looked like I needed coffee. I did need coffee. I needed a lot of things. What I needed most was to see my family. It was December 23rd. I'd taken unpaid leave from the warehouse. 3 days I couldn't afford to lose because Mom had called in early November with that voice she uses when she wants something. "Sweetheart, it's been 2 years, 2 Christmases. Grandma's not getting any younger, and honestly, neither am I." A laugh, brittle around the edges. "We miss you, your brother misses you. Even your father's been asking about you, and you know how he is." I did know how he was. That was part of why I'd stayed away, but she'd worn me down the way she always did, with guilt wrapped in affection, obligation dressed up as love. And maybe I wanted to believe things could be different. Maybe I was tired of spending holidays in my apartment with a frozen lasagna and whatever movie was playing on cable. Maybe I just missed the idea of home, even if the reality had never quite matched. So I'd agreed. And then, a week later, the loan request came. "It's not really a loan," Mom had said, which was how I knew it absolutely was. "More like an advance on your inheritance." Ha! Not that. There's much of one, but your father's bonus didn't come through the way we expected, and the furnace needs replacing, and you know how these things pile up. I didn't have $9,500. I had exactly $11.47 in my savings account, money I'd scraped together over 3 years of double shifts and skipped dinners, and telling myself that someday, I'd have enough for a down payment on a place of my own. A small place, nothing fancy, just somewhere with my name on the deed instead of a landlord's. "We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important," she'd said. And because I am my mother's daughter, because I learned young that love means sacrifice and family means obligation and saying no means you're selfish, ungrateful, cold, I transferred the money, $9,500. The furnace, I told myself. They need a working furnace. It's December. It gets cold in Ohio. Now I stood in their kitchen, looking at the carcass of a turkey that had been cooked and consumed without me, and I understood that I had been very, very stupid. The note was on the refrigerator, held up by a magnet shaped like a flamingo. My mother collected flamingo kitsch, magnets, salt shakers, throw pillows, a lawn ornament that played Margaritaville when you walked past it. She'd started the collection after a trip to Florida 15 years ago and never stopped. The house was lousy with flamingos. I stared at the magnet for a long moment before I read the note. "Kids, surprise! We won a last-minute cruise deal and couldn't pass it up. 7 days through the Caribbean. We'll be back December 30th. Mom's fine. She's got her shows and her pills are in the cabinet. Leftovers in the fridge. See you next week. Love, Mom and Dad. P.S. Derek and Mandy came with us. Their first cruise. Isn't that exciting?" Beneath that, in my father's handwriting, "Make sure she takes her blood pressure pill. Morning and night." I read the note 3 times. Then I read it again. The flamingo magnet grinned at me with its plastic beak, and I thought about how far 95 to 100 could take a family of 4 on a Caribbean cruise. 7 days, departing when? The 22nd? The 23rd? While I was driving through freezing rain, while I was cursing at my windshield wipers, while I was counting down miles and telling myself it would be worth it. They were boarding a ship. They were ordering drinks with little umbrellas in them. They were watching the shoreline disappear. I found Grandma in the den, in the recliner Dad had bought her last year after her hip replacement. The television was on, some reality show about people buying houses they couldn't afford, and she was eating reheated stuffing out of a Tupperware container with a plastic fork. She looked up when I walked in, and her face went through about 6 expressions in the span of 2 seconds. Surprise. Relief. Then something harder, something tired and unsurprised in a way that made my chest hurt. Ellie, she said, you made it. Grandma. I stood there in my coat, still holding my keys. What the hell is going on? She set the Tupperware on the side table, muted the television, looked at me with those pale blue eyes that had always seen more than she let on. Sit down, she said. You look like you're about to fall over. I sat. Not because she told me to, but because my legs weren't going to hold me up much longer. They left, I said. They went on a cruise. They did. Without telling me. Without telling either of us. She adjusted herself in the recliner, wincing slightly. The hip still bothered her, though she'd never admit it. I woke up Christmas Eve morning and found the note. They'd already been gone 6 hours by then. Caught a flight to Miami the night before. Christmas Eve morning, I repeated. Today's the 23rd. Is it? She squinted at the clock on the wall. I've lost track. The days blend together when you're my age, and there's no one around to remind you. I pressed my palms against my eyes. The headache that had started somewhere around Columbus was now a full-blown assault, pounding behind my temples like a second heartbeat. They took my money, I said. I sent them $9,500 for a furnace. For a furnace, Grandma, and they used it to go on vacation. Ah, she picked up her stuffing again, poked at it with the fork. I wondered where the money came from. Your father doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and Derek's been between opportunities since August. Derek, my brother, 2 years older, perpetually underemployed, eternally optimistic about the next scheme that was going to make him rich. Last I'd heard, he was selling some kind of supplement that was supposed to cure everything from fatigue to thinning hair. Before that, it was cryptocurrency. Before that, it was a ground floor opportunity in a company that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. And Mandy, his wife of 4 years, sweet as sugar and twice as empty, who'd never worked a day in her life and didn't see why she should start now. They took all of them, I said. Mom, Dad, Derek, Mandy, everyone except you. Everyone except me, Grandma agreed. She didn't sound hurt exactly, more resigned. The way you sound when something that should surprise you doesn't, because you've been watching it coming for a long time. And me, I added, though it felt pathetic even as I said it. They didn't take me either. Grandma looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her face that might have been pity or might have been recognition. No, she said. They took from you instead. I didn't cry. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the tears wouldn't come. They were stuck somewhere behind my ribs, frozen solid, as cold as the turkey on the counter. Instead, I made myself useful. I heated up some of the leftover mashed potatoes in the microwave and brought Grandma a fresh glass of water and found her blood pressure pills in the cabinet exactly where the note said they'd be. I checked that the thermostat was working. It was. The furnace was fine, had probably always been fine. I was such a goddamn fool. I brought in my suitcase from the car and put it in the guest room that used to be my bedroom before I left for college and never really came back. The room still had my old posters on the walls, a faded Fleetwood Mac print, a map of the world with push pins marking all the places I'd wanted to visit someday. I hadn't visited any of them. The push pins were dusty. I sat on the edge of the bed that wasn't really my bed anymore and stared at the map and thought about $9,500 and Caribbean cruises and my mother's voice on the phone saying we wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Important. I'd learned a long time ago that important in my family didn't mean what it was supposed to mean. Important meant whatever my parents needed it to mean at any given moment. Important was flexible. Important was a moving target. When I was 17 and wanted to go on a school trip to Washington, D.C., that wasn't important. Too expensive, they said. Even though Derek had gotten a car for his 17th birthday. Used, sure, but still. A car. When I was 22 and needed help with my last semester's tuition, that wasn't important either. I was an adult, they said. Adults figured these things out. I'd taken out a loan, graduated with debt that had taken me 8 years to pay off. But Derek's wedding? That was important. Important enough for a 5-figure reception at a country club. Important enough for a honeymoon in Cancun. Important enough that when Derek and Mandy ran into cash flow issues 3 months later, Mom and Dad had been there with a blank check and a smile. I'd accepted it. I'd told myself it was fine. that I didn't need their help anyway, that I was stronger for standing on my own 2 feet. I'd built a whole identity around being the capable one, the responsible one, the one who didn't ask for anything because she'd learned that asking only led to disappointment. And then my mother had called, and her voice had been so warm, so wanting, and I'd thought maybe things had changed. I thought maybe they missed me. I thought maybe, finally, I mattered. Grandma was still awake when I came back downstairs. She'd turned the television back on, but the sound was low, and she wasn't really watching, just staring at the screen the way people do when they need somewhere to rest their eyes. "You should sleep," I said. "It's late." "I've been sleeping too much already. That's all I do these days. Sleep and wait and eat other people's leftovers." She patted the arm of the couch beside her recliner. "Sit with me a minute." I sat. The house was quiet except for the murmur of the TV and the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the occasional creak of settling wood. Outside, I could hear the wind picking up. More bad weather coming. I'd have to check the forecast, see if the roads would be passable when I decided to leave. When, I thought, not if. I wasn't staying until they got back. I couldn't. The idea of facing my mother with her Caribbean tan, and my father with his sheepish excuses, and Derek with his, "You know how it is, sis. Opportunities don't wait." No, I couldn't. "I'm going to tell you something," Grandma said, "and I want you to listen carefully." I looked at her. In the dim light of the television, she looked older than her 82 years. Older and smaller and somehow fiercer. Like a bird with ruffled feathers, preparing for a storm. "Okay," I said. "Your mother is my daughter." The words came slowly, carefully, as if she was picking them out of a lineup. I raised her. I loved her. I still love her. But I've watched her become someone I don't always recognize, and I've watched her do things that I can't defend. And tonight, sitting here with my cold stuffing and my television, I made a decision. I waited. "I'm not going to protect her anymore," Grandma said. "Not from the truth. Not from the consequences. I've done it her whole life. Smoothed things over, made excuses, told myself that she'd grow out of it, that she'd learn. She's 63 years old, and she hasn't learned a damn thing." She turned to face me fully, and her eyes were sharp, sharper than I'd ever seen them. "But you might. So I'm going to tell you something that nobody else in this family knows." My heart was beating very fast. "What?" Grandma reached down beside her recliner and pulled up a thick manila envelope that I hadn't noticed before. It looked old, the paper slightly yellowed, the metal clasp tarnished. "Your grandfather left a will," she said. "A real will, not the one your parents think they know about. The one they know about left everything to me, and after I died, to be split evenly among the children, your mother and your Uncle Frank." "Uncle Frank died," I said. 10 years ago. He did. So your mother assumed she'd be getting everything." Grandma smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had been keeping a secret for a very long time and was finally ready to let it go. "But your grandfather and I made a different arrangement, a private one. We knew what your mother was becoming. We saw the signs early, the entitlement, the shortcuts, the way she always expected someone else to clean up her messes. Frank was the same way, God rest him. Neither of them ever learned to earn anything on their own." She held out the envelope. "This is the real will, the original. Your grandfather set up a trust 35 years ago. It's been sitting there, accruing interest, waiting for the conditions to be met." "What conditions?" My voice came out strange, thin, like it was coming from very far away. "That it would go to the first grandchild who demonstrated, and I'm quoting your grandfather here, the character to deserve it and the sense not to waste it. The trust has a board, 3 people. I'm one of them, a lawyer, and Columbus is another. The third was your grandfather's old business partner, but he passed away last year, so now it's his daughter." I stared at the envelope in her hands. "Grandma, what are you saying?" "I'm saying the trust has been watching. We've all been watching. Waiting to see which of you or your brother, would turn out different, would turn out better." She pressed the envelope into my hands. "Open it." I did. Inside were documents, legal documents, dense with language I didn't fully understand, trusts and beneficiaries and disbursement schedules. But I understood the numbers. The numbers were very clear. The trust was worth $847,000. I think I stopped breathing. I must have, because the next thing I knew, Grandma was pushing a glass of water into my hands and telling me to drink, breathe. You're fine. You're just in shock. 800, I couldn't finish the sentence. And 47,000, Grandma said calmly. Give or take, the statements are from last month. It's probably a little higher now. Your grandfather was very good with investments. So was the lawyer who manages it. I can't. I set the water down because my hands were shaking too badly to hold it. This can't be real. It's real. It's been real for 35 years. Grandma settled back in her recliner, looking more peaceful than I'd seen her all night. Your grandfather made the money in real estate, back when that was still possible for a man with a high school education and a willingness to work himself half to death. He wanted it to mean something. He wanted it to go to someone who would do something with it, not just fritter it away on cruises and supplements and lawn ornaments. I thought of my mother's flamingos, the cruise ship she was currently floating on, the $9,500 I'd never see again. Why now? I asked. Why tell me this now? Because the trust has a deadline. Grandma pointed to one of the documents. Your grandfather set it to dissolve on my 85th birthday if no beneficiary was named. That's in 3 years. The board has to make a decision, and we've been deadlocked. The lawyer thinks Derek should get it. He's the eldest. And there's some clause about eldest grandchildren that the lawyer thinks matters. But I've been holding out. I've been waiting for you to show up. Show up? To prove that you're who I thought you were. Her eyes met mine, and there was something almost fierce in them. You drove 11 hours to spend Christmas with a family that doesn't deserve you. You gave them $9,000 you couldn't afford because they asked, and you wanted to help. You've spent your whole life being responsible and reliable and good, and you've never once asked for recognition or reward. You just did the right thing because it was the right thing. I'm not. You are, she said firmly. And tonight, when you found out what they did, you didn't scream. You didn't break anything. You took care of me. You heated up my food and brought me my pills and made sure I was comfortable, even though you're the one who should be falling apart. She reached out and took my hand, her fingers thin and cool and surprisingly strong. That's character, Ellie. That's exactly what your grandfather was looking for. I looked down at the documents in my lap, at the number that still didn't seem real. They don't know about this, I said slowly. Mom and Dad, Derek, none of them know. No one knows except the board. Your grandfather wanted it that way. He said if the children knew there was money waiting, they'd perform. They'd put on an act. The only way to see someone's true character is when they don't know they're being watched. Grandma squeezed my hand. You've never known, and you've been exactly the same. Constant, reliable, good. I thought about my apartment with its second-hand furniture, my savings account, now depleted. The future I'd been slowly, painfully building, brick by brick, wondering if it would ever amount to anything. And I thought about my family on a cruise ship, spending my money on umbrella drinks, never once considering that I might need it more than they wanted it. What happens now? I asked. Grandma smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and a little mischievous, the way she used to smile when I was a kid and she'd sneak me an extra cookie before dinner. Now, she said, we wait. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I lay in my old bedroom, in my old bed staring at my old posters in the dark, and I tried to make the numbers make sense. $847,000. It wasn't a fortune, not by some standards, but it was more money than I'd ever imagined having, more than my parents had, more than anyone in my family had ever had at once, except apparently for my grandfather, who'd hidden it away like a dragon hoarding gold, waiting to see which of his grandchildren would prove worthy, and he'd chosen me. Except he hadn't, not really. He'd created a test, and I'd passed it without knowing I was taking it, which felt both wonderful and deeply, profoundly weird. Like finding out you'd been on a reality show your whole life, and the cameras had been hidden in the walls. I thought about what Grandma had said. You've been exactly the same, constant, reliable, good. Was that true? I didn't feel good. I felt tired and angry and used. I felt like a fool for trusting my mother, for sending that money, for driving 11 hours to an empty house. I felt like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life, accepting crumbs and calling them a feast, telling myself that loyalty and love were the same thing when really I'd just been afraid to ask for more. But maybe that was the point. Maybe character wasn't about feeling good or being noble or having pure intentions. Maybe it was just about what you did when no one was watching, when there was nothing to gain, when the only reward was knowing you'd done the right thing. I'd taken care of Grandma. I'd driven 11 hours because my mother asked me to, because I wanted to see my family, because some stupid, hopeful part of me still believed in Christmas miracles and second chances. And now I was lying in the dark with $847,000 and absolutely no idea what to do with it. Christmas Eve dawned gray and cold. The wind had brought snow overnight, not much, just a thin dusting that turned the world white and quiet and strangely peaceful. I made coffee, I made toast. I brought Grandma her pills and asked if she wanted eggs, and she said yes, scrambled, with extra butter. Because she was 82 years old, and if the cholesterol was going to kill her, then it should have done it by now. I scrambled the eggs, I added extra butter. We ate together in the kitchen, not talking much, just existing in the same space. The house felt different this morning, not quite so hollow, not quite so abandoned. Maybe because Grandma was awake and present and with me, instead of just waiting for the others to return. Or maybe because I was different. "What are you thinking?" Grandma asked. "I'm thinking about the trust," I admitted. About what I would do with it. If it actually becomes mine. And I pushed my eggs around my plate. I don't know. Pay off my apartment lease, I guess. Buy a car that doesn't shake when I go over 50. Maybe go back to school, get a degree that isn't in warehouse management. I smiled, but it felt thin. I've never let myself think about it. What I'd do if money wasn't the thing holding me back. It always seemed pointless, like making wishes at the bottom of a well. "Your mother used to make wishes," Grandma said. "Big ones. She wanted to be a famous actress when she was young, did you know that? She was in all the school plays. She had real talent, I think. But she also had expensive taste and a boy she wanted to impress. And the boy was your father, and your father wanted a wife who would stay home and raise babies and keep the house nice while he worked. So she put the acting away, told herself she was happy, and maybe she was for a while. But happiness that comes from giving up what you want, that's not real happiness. That's just exhaustion dressed up in nice clothes." I thought about my mother, the way she threw herself into every project, every scheme, every new obsession, the flamingos, the book clubs, the essential oils phase that had lasted 2 years and ended with a garage full of unsold inventory, always looking for something, always coming up empty. "You think that's why she's like this?" I asked. "Why she takes and never thinks about what it costs?" "I think she never learned that she was worth something on her own," Grandma said. "I think she spent so long performing, being the good daughter, the good wife, the good mother, that she forgot who she was underneath. And when you don't know who you are, you fill the emptiness with things, with trips and stuff, and the feeling that you're getting away with something." She shook her head. "It's not an excuse, just an explanation. And it's one I should have addressed a long time ago, instead of letting it fester. It's not your fault, Grandma. Maybe not. But it's my responsibility. I raised her. I made choices that led here." She looked at me with those sharp blue eyes. "And now I'm making different choices, better ones, I hope, while I still can." The day passed slowly. I watched old movies with Grandma. I made us grilled cheese sandwiches for lunch and heated up leftover pie for an early dinner. I checked my phone obsessively, even though there was no one to hear from. My parents were on a ship in the middle of the ocean, probably without cell service, definitely without any awareness that anything was wrong. That was the part that kept catching in my throat. They didn't know that I knew. They didn't know that I'd arrived to an empty house and a cold turkey and a note that said, "Take care of her as if Grandma was a houseplant." They'd probably assumed I would be annoyed, maybe disappointed, but that I'd get over it, that I'd swallow my feelings the way I always did, that by the time they got back, tanned and rested and full of stories, I'd have forgiven them, because I always did. That was the pattern. They took, I gave, and then I forgave. Because what else was there? They were my family. You didn't abandon family. You didn't hold grudges. You accepted people as they were and loved them anyway, but $9,500. $9,500 that I'd worked for, saved for, planned around. Money that was supposed to be the foundation of my future. Gone, just like that, on a whim. And the lie, the furnace. I kept coming back to that. Not the cruise itself, that was bad enough. But the story they'd told me to get the money. They'd looked me in the eye. Well, my mother had, over the phone, which wasn't quite the same thing, but still. And they'd lied. Deliberately. Knowing what they were going to do with it. Knowing I would find out eventually. Had they thought I wouldn't care? Or had they just not thought about me at all? Christmas Day. I'd always loved Christmas morning when I was a kid. Not for the presents. We'd never had much money, and the gifts were always practical things, socks and notebooks, and maybe a book if I was lucky, but for the feeling. The sense that something magical might happen. That the world had paused, just for a day, to let people be kinder to each other. I didn't feel magical this year. I felt like I was waiting for something, though I couldn't have said what. Grandma and I opened the small gifts I'd brought. A new cardigan for her, a scarf I'd found at a craft fair back home. She gave me a check for $50, which she did every year, and which I always felt guilty cashing but did anyway because she wanted me to have it. It's not much of a Christmas, she said. I'm sorry. It's fine, I said. It's actually kind of nice. Quiet. Quiet. She laughed a little. That's one word for it. Abandoned is another. Betrayed is a third. Grandma. I'm just saying what you're thinking. She leaned back in her recliner and looked at the small tree in the corner, artificial, put up by my mother 2 weeks ago and never quite finished. The top half decorated, but the bottom still bare. You don't have to pretend for my sake. I know how bad this is. I know what they did to you. I was quiet for a long moment. Then, I keep thinking about the note. Take care of her. Like you're a chore. Like looking after your own mother is something you can just outsource to your daughter because you wanted to go on vacation. To be fair, your mother has never been much for caretaking. Grandma's voice was dry. When I had my hip surgery last year, she visited exactly twice. Once to bring flowers, and once to ask if I could loan her money for Derek's business venture. Did you? I did not. I told her I was on a fixed income and couldn't afford it, which was a lie. I have plenty thanks to your grandfather's planning, but I wanted to see what she would do. Grandma shook her head. She didn't visit again for 3 months. I felt something tighten in my chest. I didn't know that. Why would you? You were busy with your own life, working, surviving, being the only one in this family who doesn't expect the world to hand them things on a platter. She looked at me. That's why the money is going to you, Ellie. Because you're the only one who won't waste it. We don't know that it's going to me yet, I said. You said the board was deadlocked. The board was deadlocked, past tense. Grandma smiled. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Watching, waiting. And now I've seen enough. I'm going to call the lawyer tomorrow and tell him my decision. It's going to be you. I opened my mouth to say something, thank you, or are you sure, or I don't deserve this. But before I could, my phone buzzed. A text message. From my mother. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Hope you're having a wonderful time. Weather here is gorgeous. Derek got seasick yesterday, but he's better now. Can't wait to see you when we get back. Love you, followed by a string of emojis. Sun, palm tree, cruise ship, heart. I stared at the screen. She didn't know. She genuinely didn't know that I'd arrived to an empty house. She assumed, what? That I hadn't come, that I'd decided not to make the trip. Or had she just not thought about it at all, too caught up in her umbrella drinks and her deck chairs to remember that her daughter was supposed to be waiting for her? What is it? Grandma asked. I showed her the phone. She read the message. Her face didn't change, but something in her eyes went very, very cold. Write her back, she said. And say what? The truth. Tell her you're here. Tell her you found the note. Tell her you know about the money. Grandma's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. It's time she found out that actions have consequences. I looked at the phone, at my mother's cheerful emojis, and I started to type. Mom, I'm at the house. I drove 11 hours to spend Christmas with you. I found the note. I also found out what you did with my $9,500, the money I sent you for the furnace. Grandma's fine. I've been taking care of her, like your note suggested. We need to talk when you get back. I didn't add emojis. I didn't add love you. I just hit send. The response came faster than I expected, within 5 minutes, which meant my mother had been holding her phone, probably waiting for my reply to her holiday greeting. What? You're at the house? We thought you weren't coming until the 26th. I read it 3 times. Then I typed, I told you I was coming on the 23rd. We talked about it twice. You said you'd have my favorite dinner ready. A pause. Then, oh honey, there must have been a miscommunication. I swear I thought you said the 26th. We never would have left if we knew you. We're coming early? Are you okay? Is mom okay? The exclamation points were almost aggressive, like she could make her lie true through sheer punctuational enthusiasm. We're fine, I typed. But I know about the money. I know there was no furnace. Another pause, longer this time. Then my father's name appeared on the screen. He was calling me. I let it ring, let it go to voicemail. A moment later, a text from him. Ellie, pick up. We need to talk about this. No, I wrote back. We don't, not right now. Enjoy your cruise. We'll talk when you get back. I turned off my phone. Grandma was watching me with something like pride. Good, she said. Let them stew. Let them wonder. Let them spend the rest of their vacation thinking about what they've done. Is that cruel? I asked. It feels cruel. It's boundaries, she said firmly. It's the first real boundary you've ever set with them. And I promise you, the discomfort you're feeling right now, they should have been feeling it years ago. They should have been feeling it every time they took from you without asking. Every time they assumed you'd clean up their messes. Every time they treated you like an afterthought. She reached over and patted my hand. You're not being cruel, sweetheart. You're being honest. And honestly is the kindest thing you can offer someone, even when it hurts. The next 2 days passed in a strange sort of limbo. I kept my phone off most of the time. When I did turn it on, there were always new messages, from my mother, my father, even Derek, whose texts ranged from, hey sis, what's going on, to mom says you're being weird, is everything okay too? Finally, seriously, you're freaking everyone out, just call us. I didn't call. I texted back once, a brief message that said, I'm fine, Grandma's fine, we're not discussing this over text, see you on the 30th. Then I turned the phone off again and went back to watching old movies with Grandma and eating leftover pie and trying not to think about the $847,000 that was waiting somewhere in a trust account. Life-changing and impossible in mine. Well, almost mine. Grandma called the lawyer on December 26th, as promised. I listened from the kitchen as she explained her decision, her voice calm and certain. Yes, she was sure. Yes, she understood the implications. No, she didn't want to wait any longer. The board needed to convene and make it official, but her vote was final. When she hung up, she came into the kitchen and said, It's done. The paperwork will take a few weeks, but the decision is made. You're the beneficiary. I should have felt happy. I should have felt grateful, relieved, vindicated. All the things you're supposed to feel when something wonderful happens. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired and sad and strangely empty. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for a very long time, and I'd finally set it down. But my muscles didn't know what to do without the weight. Thank you, I said. I don't know if I deserve it, but thank you. You deserve it, Grandma said. You're the only one who does. And more than that, you'll use it. You'll build something with it. That's what your grandfather wanted. That's what I want. She paused, then added, That's what you deserve to want. I nodded. I didn't cry. The tears were still stuck somewhere deep inside, frozen and unreachable. But I thought maybe, eventually, they might thaw. December 30th. The cruise ship was scheduled to dock in Miami at 6 a.m. My parents had a flight back to Columbus at noon, which meant they'd be landing around 4 p.m. With the drive from the airport, they'd probably be home by 6. I spent the day preparing. Not packing. I wasn't leaving. Not yet. I had things to say first. Things I'd been composing in my head for days. Revising and editing and rehearsing until I had them exactly right. Or as close to exactly right as I was ever going to get. Grandma knew what I was planning. She'd helped, actually, asking questions, poking holes in my arguments, making sure I had my facts straight. She had a lawyer's mind, sharp and precise, even though she'd never been to law school. She'd been married to a man who built an empire from nothing, and she'd learned a few things along the way. "They're going to cry," she warned me. "Your mother, especially. She's very good at crying." "I know. They're going to say it was a misunderstanding. They're going to say they didn't mean it. They would never hurt you. You're blowing this out of proportion." "I know. Are you ready for that?" I thought about it. About the 11-hour drive and the cold turkey and the note on the refrigerator. About the $9,500 and the furnace that never needed fixing. About all the years of swallowed feelings and accepted crumbs and telling myself that this was just how families worked. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." They arrived at 5:47 p.m. I heard the car in the driveway first, the crunch of tires on gravel, the thunk of doors opening and closing. Then voices. My mother's rising above the rest, already making excuses before she'd even walked through the door. I still don't understand why she's being so dramatic about this. It was an honest mistake. We thought she was coming on the 26th. The front door opened. My mother walked in first. She was tanned, as I'd expected, and wearing a new dress I didn't recognize. Something flowy and tropical, completely wrong for Ohio in December. Behind her came my father, looking tired and vaguely annoyed, and behind him Derek and Mandy, both of them with that slightly guilty expression that told me they knew more than they were pretending to. They stopped when they saw me. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, in full view of the entryway, waiting. "Ellie," my mother said. Her face went through several expressions: surprise, relief, wariness. "Oh, sweetheart, you're still here. We thought maybe you'd gone home." "Home?" I repeated. "You thought I'd driven 11 hours, found an empty house, and then turned around and driven 11 hours back?" Well, she glanced at my father, as if hoping for support. "We didn't know what to think. You weren't answering your phone, and your texts were so cold." "I was busy," I said, "taking care of Grandma." "Right, of course. And we're so grateful, really. We never would have left if we'd known." "Mom," I stood up. My heart was pounding, but my voice was calm. Grandma's voice, I realized. Grandma's steel. "I need you to stop," she blinked. "Stop what?" "Lying, making excuses, pretending you didn't know exactly what you were doing." I took a breath. "You took my money. You took $9,500 that I sent you for a furnace that was never broken, and you used it to go on a cruise." Silence. My father shifted his weight. Derek looked at the floor. Mandy was suddenly very interested in her phone. "Ellie," my mother's voice changed, softening into something that was supposed to sound reasonable, but came out condescending. "I know you're upset and I understand why, but I think you're misunderstanding the situation. The money it was for family expenses. The cruise is a family expense. We needed a break, all of us, and your father's bonus didn't come through and—" "The cruise was $12,000, I said. I looked it up. 7-day Caribbean cruise for 4 people, departing December 22nd. Even with my money, you were short. So where did the rest come from?" Another silence. Longer this time. That's none of your business," my mother said. But her voice had gone thin, uncertain. "It became my business when you took my savings," I said. "When you looked me in the eye, well, over the phone, but still, and told me you needed help with the furnace." "The furnace, Mom. You made up a whole story. You said it was dangerous, that you were worried about carbon monoxide, that you couldn't afford the repair, and I believed you. I wanted to believe you. It wasn't. We didn't—" She looked at my father. "Jim, say something." My father cleared his throat. He'd been very quiet through all of this, which was his usual role. Let his wife do the talking, step in only when absolutely necessary. "Ellie," he said slowly, "I think what your mother is trying to say is that we didn't see it as stealing. We thought of it as a family loan, something we'd pay back eventually." "Pay back?" I laughed. It wasn't a pleasant laugh. "With what?" "Dad, you've been between jobs for 6 months. Derek hasn't held a steady position in 3 years. Mandy's never worked at all. Where exactly was this payback coming from?" "Now, that's not fair," Derek started. "Really? It's not fair to point out that you've borrowed money from Mom and Dad 9 times in the last 5 years and never paid any of it back. It's not fair to mention that you sold your car to fund a cryptocurrency scheme and then asked them to buy you a new one." I turned to face my brother fully. "You were on that cruise, too, Derek. You and Mandy. So you don't get to stand there and act like you're an innocent bystander. Derek's face went red. At least I'm part of this family, he said. At least I show up. When's the last time you came home for a holiday, huh? When's the last time you called just to say hi? You act like you're so much better than us, but you're the one who moved away and never looked back. I moved away because I had to, I said. Because there was nothing here for me except being asked for things I couldn't afford to give. I stayed away because every time I came back, every time I opened my wallet or my heart, someone found a way to take advantage of it. That's not true. It is true. It's been true for years. I just didn't want to see it. I took a breath. But I see it now. The room was very quiet. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car drove past, its headlights sweeping briefly across the window. Ellie, my mother's voice was softer now, trembling. Sweetheart, I know we made a mistake. I know we should have told you the truth, but we're family. Families make mistakes. Families forgive each other. She stepped toward me, reaching out. Can't we just move past this? I'll pay you back. Somehow. We'll figure it out. Just don't let this ruin everything. I looked at her tan and her new dress and her outstretched hands, at the tears gathering in her eyes, right on cue. No, I said. She flinched like I'd slapped her. What? No, you won't pay me back. No, we won't just move past this. No, I'm not going to pretend everything is fine because you said you're sorry. I stepped back, putting space between us. I've spent my whole life being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who never asked for anything because she learned early that asking only leads to disappointment. And I told myself that was strength, that I was being a good daughter, a good sister, a good person. But it wasn't strength. It was fear. I was afraid that if I set boundaries, if I said no, if I demanded to be treated with respect, I'd lose you. I paused. Let the words settle. But I've already lost you, I said quietly. I lost you a long time ago. I just didn't want to admit it. What happened next wasn't dramatic. There was no screaming, no thrown objects, no climactic confrontation. My mother cried. Grandma had been right about that, and my father got very quiet. And Derek tried to argue but ran out of steam when he realized I wasn't going to argue back. Mandy excused herself to the bathroom and didn't come out for 20 minutes. I said what I needed to say. Not all of it. Not the part about the trust, not yet, that was Grandma's story to tell, but enough. I told them I was taking some time away from the family. I told them I didn't know when or if I'd be ready to come back. I told them I loved them, because I did, even now, even after everything. But that love wasn't enough to make me keep sacrificing my own well-being for people who didn't value it. And then I went upstairs to pack my suitcase. I was zipping it closed when Grandma knocked on the door. Come in, I said. She walked in slowly, leaning on the cane she used when her hip was bothering her. Her face was calm, but her eyes were bright. That was well done, she said. I'm proud of you. I don't feel proud, I admitted. I feel sick. That's normal. Setting boundaries always feels terrible at first. Like you're being cruel when really you're just being honest. She sat down on the edge of the bed, my old bed, with its faded comforter and its lumpy pillow. Your mother came to me just now. She's very upset. I know. She asked me to talk to you, to make you see reason. Grandma smiled slightly. I told her that you were the most reasonable person in this family, and that maybe she should try listening to you instead of the other way around. I almost laughed. How did she take that? Badly, but that's not your problem. Grandma reached out and took my hand. There's something else. Something I need to tell them. About the trust. My stomach dropped. Now? Now. Before you leave. I want them to know, and I want you to be here when they find out. I want them to see that their choices have consequences, and that the consequence of a lifetime of entitlement is losing something they never knew they had. I thought about it. About what it would mean. The explosion, the accusations, the probable years of resentment and recrimination. But I also thought about my grandfather. About the test he'd set up 3 decades before I was even born. About the faith he'd had that one of his grandchildren would turn out different, better. Okay, I said, let's do it. We went downstairs together. My family was in the living room, all of them, even Mandy, who had emerged from the bathroom with red-rimmed eyes and ruined mascara. They looked up when we entered, and I saw hope flicker across my mother's face, then die when she saw our expressions. "Mom," she said to Grandma, "please, talk some sense into her." "I'm not here to talk sense into anyone," Grandma said. She sat down in the armchair by the window, not her recliner, that was in the den, and folded her hands in her lap. "I'm here to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago, but I was waiting to see how things would play out." "What are you talking about?" My mother's voice was wary now, suspicious. "Your father left a will," Grandma said. "The one you know about, the one that left everything to me, and then to be split between you and Frank after I was gone. But there was another will, a secret one. A trust." The room went very still. "A trust," my father repeated slowly. "Yes. Established 35 years ago, when your father made his money and wanted to make sure it would mean something after he was gone. He didn't trust his children, either of them, to use it wisely. So he created a test, a way to see which of his grandchildren would turn out to have the character to deserve it." I watched my mother's face. She was doing the math, I could tell, trying to figure out what this meant, how much money was involved, whether she could somehow get her hands on it. "How much?" Derek asked. He'd never been subtle. "Enough," Grandma said. "More than enough. It's been growing for 35 years. "And who?" My mother's voice cracked. "Who gets it?" Grandma looked at me. Everyone else looked at me. "Ellie," Grandma said. "The board decided unanimously. The trust goes to Ellie." The explosion I'd been expecting didn't come. Not right away. Instead, there was silence. A long, stretching silence that felt like falling, like the moment before you hit the ground, when everything is suspended and unreal. Then my mother laughed. It was a strange laugh, high and brittle, like glass about to shatter. That's ridiculous," she said. "Ellie, she's barely part of this family. She never comes home. She never calls. She moved away and left us all behind. And now you're telling me she gets what? What does she get?" Grandma didn't flinch. "She gets what she deserves, what she's earned, which is more than any of the rest of you can say. That's not fair." My mother's voice was rising now, losing its fragile composure. "That's not fair. I'm your daughter. I've been here. I've taken care of you." "When?" Grandma interrupted. "When did you take care of me? When I was in the hospital, you visited twice. When I needed help after my surgery, you suggested I hire a nurse because you were too busy. When I asked you to spend Christmas with me this year, just with me, you said you would, and then you left for a cruise without even saying goodbye. That was a misunderstanding." "It was not a misunderstanding. It was exactly who you are." Grandma's voice was calm, but I could hear the anger underneath, the years of accumulated disappointment. "You've spent your whole life taking from people and never giving anything back. You took from your father, from me, from your brother while he was alive, and from his memory after he was gone. And now you've taken from your own daughter, the only person in this family who ever tried to be different, who ever tried to be good." My mother's face crumpled. The tears that had been threatening earlier finally spilled over, running down her cheeks in dark streaks of mascara. "Mom," she whispered. "Please, I can change. I'll do better. Just don't do this. Don't cut me out." "I'm not cutting you out of anything," Grandma said. "You'll still get what you were always going to get. Your share of my estate after I'm gone. But the trust was never yours to lose. It was always meant for someone who would use it well, someone who would build something instead of burning through it." She looked at me. "That's Ellie. It's always been Ellie. I was just waiting for her to see it too." I stood there in the middle of my family, and I didn't know what to feel. Vindicated, maybe, relieved, a little, but mostly just tired. Tired and sad and ready for all of this to be over. "I'm leaving," I said. "Tonight. I'll find a hotel somewhere. Drive back tomorrow." "Ellie, wait." My mother reached for me, but I stepped back. "No. I've said what I needed to say. Grandma's said what she needed to say. There's nothing left to discuss." I picked up my suitcase, which I'd brought downstairs with me. I hope you all have a good new year. I really do. But I can't be here right now. I can't pretend everything is normal when it's not." "When will we see you again?" my father asked. His voice was quiet, defeated. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe never, maybe in a year. I haven't decided yet. I walked to the door, opened it. The cold air rushed in, sharp and clean, carrying the smell of snow. Ellie, Grandma's voice stopped me. I turned. She was still, sitting in the armchair, small and fierce and utterly undefeated. Call me when you get to the hotel, she said. I want to know you're safe. I will, I said. And then I walked out into the night. The hotel was nothing special, a Holiday Inn off the highway, about 40 minutes from my parents' house. But the sheets were clean and the heater worked, and there was a vending machine in the hallway with hot chocolate, which I bought 2 of and drank sitting cross-legged on the bed, staring at the wall. I called Grandma, like I'd promised. She answered on the first ring. You're safe? I'm safe. Good. A pause. How do you feel? I thought about it. I don't know. Empty, maybe. Like I've been carrying something for a long time and I finally put it down, but my arms don't know what to do without it. That's normal, she said. It will pass. You'll find new things to carry. Better things. I hope so. You will. I know you will. Another pause, longer this time. Ellie, I want you to know, whatever happens with your parents, whatever you decide about your relationship with them, I'm proud of you. Your grandfather would have been proud of you too. You're exactly the person he hoped you would be. My eyes burned. The tears that had been frozen inside me for days finally started to thaw, trickling down my cheeks, warm and wet and strangely freeing. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered, for everything. Don't thank me. I just told the truth. You're the one who lived it. We said goodnight. I hung up the phone, lay back on the hotel bed, and stared at the ceiling, letting the tears fall, not trying to stop them. Outside, snow was falling. I could see it through the gap in the curtains, fat white flakes drifting down from a dark sky, covering the parking lot, the cars, the road, making everything clean and quiet and new. I thought about the money, the $847,000 that was waiting for me somewhere, life-changing and impossible and mine. I thought about what I would do with it, the apartment I could buy, the car I could fix, the degree I could finally finish, the future I'd been too afraid to dream of, now suddenly within reach. But more than that, I thought about what it meant. It meant my grandfather had seen something in me, something worth believing in, worth investing in, worth waiting 35 years for. It meant Grandma had been watching, all this time, keeping track of my quiet acts of kindness and responsibility, judging me not by my words but by my actions. It meant I was worth something. Not because of the money was just a symbol, a concrete manifestation of an abstract truth. No, I was worth something, because I had spent my whole life trying to be good, trying to be kind, trying to take care of the people around me, even when they didn't deserve it, even when it cost me everything, and that was worth more than any inheritance. I drove home the next day. The roads were clear, the sun was out, and the world sparkled, under its blanket of fresh snow like something out of a postcard. My phone buzzed constantly, texts from my mother, from Derek, even from my father, who rarely texted anyone. I didn't read them, not yet. I wasn't ready. What I was ready for was something else, something I'd been putting off for years, telling myself it wasn't the right time, I couldn't afford it. It was a pipe dream and nothing more. When I got home, I sat down at my computer and started researching real estate programs, night classes, weekend certifications, the kind of thing that would let me take the money I was about to receive and actually do something with it, instead of just watching it sit in an account. My grandfather had been a real estate man, had built his fortune from nothing, brick by brick, deal by deal. And maybe, I thought, there was something fitting about that, about using his gift to follow in his footsteps, to build something lasting. The trust paperwork arrived 3 weeks later. I signed it at the lawyer's office in Columbus, with Grandma on the phone as a witness, her voice thin but steady across the miles. It's done, the lawyer said. The funds will be transferred within 7 business days. I thanked him, hung up, sat in my car in the parking lot, and watched the numbers appear on my phone screen. Numbers that still didn't seem real, that might never seem real, that represented a future I'd never dared to imagine. 847. $312,047. I laughed. It came out strange, half sob, half giggle, like something that had been trapped inside me for years, finally breaking free. Then I started the car and drove home to begin the rest of my life. 6 months later, I bought a house. It was small, just 2 bedrooms, a bathroom that needed updating, a kitchen with Harvest Gold appliances that were somehow still working. But it was mine. My name on the deed, my key in the lock, my future, finally, within my own control. Grandma came to visit the first week I moved in. She was frailer then. She'd been at Christmas, moving slower, but her eyes were still sharp and her tongue was still sharper. "It needs work," she said, looking around. "I know, that's the point. I'm going to fix it up, sell it, buy another one. That's the business model. Your grandfather's business model. I learned from the best," I smiled at her. "Well, I learned from stories about the best. And from you," she smiled back. It was a real smile, warm and proud and full of something that looked like love. "You're going to do well," she said. "I always knew you would." I didn't see my parents again for almost a year. They called at first, texted, sent emails that ranged from apologetic to angry to pleading. My mother even showed up at my old apartment once, before she realized I'd moved, and left a note with my former landlord that said, "Please call me. I need to talk to you. I'm your mother." I didn't call. It wasn't that I was trying to punish them, or maybe it was a little at first. But mostly, I just needed space to figure out who I was without them. Space to build a life that wasn't shaped by their expectations, their needs, their constant small betrayals. When I finally did see them, it was at Grandma's funeral. She died in September, peacefully, in her sleep. The doctor said her heart just stopped, which seemed fitting somehow. She'd always had a strong heart, strong enough to love a difficult daughter, strong enough to keep a secret for 35 years, strong enough to give me the greatest gift I'd ever received. I stood at her graveside with my family and watched them lower her into the ground, and I felt, not grief exactly, though that was there too, more like gratitude for everything she'd given me, for everything she'd seen in me. Afterward, there was a reception at my parents' house. I almost didn't go, but something made me do it, some sense that this was a chapter closing, a page turning, and I needed to be there to see it through. My mother found me in the kitchen, standing by the window, watching the leaves fall in the backyard. "Ellie," she said. Her voice was soft, careful, like she was approaching a wild animal that might bolt at any moment. "Mom, I'm glad you came. I wasn't sure you would." Neither was I. We stood in silence for a moment. Outside, a gust of wind sent leaves spiraling across the lawn. "I've been thinking," my mother said finally, "about what happened, about what I did, about all of it." She took a breath. "I was wrong. I know that now. I was wrong to take your money, wrong to lie about it, wrong to leave you alone at Christmas. I was wrong about a lot of things." I turned to look at her. She looked older than she had a year ago, more lines around her eyes, more gray in her hair. But she also looked clearer somehow, like something had been stripped away, leaving only what was real underneath. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said. "Since last February. Your father too. We're working on things, trying to understand why we are the way we are, trying to do better." "That's good," I said. And I meant it. "I'm glad." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said quickly. "I know I don't deserve it. I know I might never deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying, that I see what I did wrong, that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be someone you might be able to respect." I looked at her, at my mother, who had taken from me and lied to me and left me alone in an empty house on Christmas Eve, at the woman who had taught me to swallow my feelings and accept crumbs and call it love. And I also looked at the woman who had maybe finally started to change. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did, it hurt me, Mom. It really hurt me." "I know. But I also know that people can change. Grandma believed that. She believed in second chances." I paused. "I'm not saying we're okay. I'm not saying I'm ready to have you in my life the way we were before. But I'm willing to try, to see if there's something worth rebuilding." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "That's all I can ask," she whispered. "That's more than I deserve." I nodded. Didn't hug her, I wasn't ready for that. But I let her stand next to me at the window, watching the leaves fall as the afternoon light faded and the shadows grew long. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't the happy ending that stories are supposed to have, but it was something. A beginning, maybe, or an ending, or just a moment of stillness between two people who had hurt each other and been hurt by each other, trying to figure out if there was anything left to save. I sold my first house 6 months after that, made a profit of $47,000, which I rolled into the next property. Then the next, then the next. The business grew slowly, carefully, the way my grandfather would have wanted. No shortcuts, no schemes, just hard work and good decisions and the willingness to walk away from deals that didn't feel right. I hired my first employee 3 years in, then my second, then my third. By the time I was 40, I had a team of 8 and a portfolio worth more than I'd ever imagined. But I never forgot where it started. Never forgot the cold turkey on Christmas Eve, or the note on the refrigerator, or the old woman eating leftovers alone in the den. I never forgot what it felt like to be underestimated, to be taken for granted, to be the one who gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left. And I never forgot what it felt like to finally say no more. My mother and I rebuilt something over the years, not what we'd had before. That was gone forever, burned away by betrayal and silence and the long, hard work of forgiveness. But something new, something fragile and careful and surprisingly real. We met for coffee once a month, just the two of us. We talked about small things at first, the weather, her, garden, my latest project. Then bigger things, harder things, the past and all its complications, the future and all its possibilities. She never fully apologized for what she had done. Never said the words "I was wrong, I'm sorry, please forgive me," but she showed it in small ways. In the way she listened when I talked. In the way she stopped asking for things. In the way she finally learned to see me as a person, and not just a resource. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was enough. Derek and I never reconciled. Not really. He asked me for money once, about 2 years after Grandma's funeral. Said he had a business opportunity, a sure thing. Just needed a small investment to get it off the ground. I told him no. He called me selfish and cold, and said I'd always thought I was better than him. Maybe I did. Maybe I'd earned the right to. Either way, we stopped talking after that. I saw him at family events sometimes, weddings, funerals, the occasional birthday, but we didn't speak. Just nodded at each other from across the room. Two strangers who happened to share the same parents. I told myself I was okay with that. And eventually, I was. I kept the flamingo magnet, the one from my parents' refrigerator, the one that had held up the note on that Christmas Eve. I don't know why. Some impulse I didn't fully understand. Some need to hold on to a piece of the moment that had changed everything. It sits on my own refrigerator now, in the house I bought with my own money, in the life I built from nothing. Sometimes, when I'm making coffee in the morning or heating up leftovers for dinner, I catch sight of it and I remember. I remember the cold turkey and the empty house, the 11-hour drive and the frozen tears, the old woman in the recliner, eating stuffing out of a Tupperware container, telling me I was worth something. I remember the moment I finally believed her, and I remember that it was enough. It was more than enough. Grandma was right about one thing. I did build something lasting, something real. Not just the business, though that was part of it, but a life, a self, an identity that wasn't defined by what I could give to others, but by who I chose to be for myself. It's not a perfect life. There are still hard days, still moments when the old habits creep back, the urge to sacrifice, to accommodate, to make myself small so others can be big. But I recognize them now. I see them coming. And I know, most of the time, how to say no. No, I can't loan you money. No, I won't cover for your mistake. No, I don't have to be responsible for your happiness. Just no. It's a small word, 2 letters, 1 syllable. But it took me 35 years to learn how to say it. And now that I have, I'm never going to forget. The trust is gone now, spent on properties and payroll and the thousand small expenses of building a business from the ground up. But I don't miss it. The money was never the point. The point was the belief, the faith that my grandfather had in me before I was even born, the watchful love of my grandmother, who waited decades to see if I would become the person she hoped I would be, the knowledge, finally internalized after so many years of doubt, that I was worth investing in, that I was worth believing in, that I was worth something. I think about that Christmas sometimes, the one that broke everything open, the one that should have been the worst of my life, but turned out to be the beginning of the best. I think about the turkey, cold and abandoned on the counter. I think about the note on the refrigerator. I think about my grandmother, sitting alone in her recliner, watching her shows and waiting for someone to remember her. And I think about how it felt to finally understand that love isn't about sacrifice. It isn't about giving until there's nothing left. It isn't about swallowing your pain and calling it devotion. Love is about seeing someone, clearly, all their flaws, all their failures, all the ways they've let you down, and choosing to believe in them anyway. That's what my grandmother did for me. That's what I'm trying to do for myself. The flamingo magnet grins at me from the refrigerator. I pour myself a cup of coffee, watch the steam rise, think about all the miles between who I was and who I've become. Then I set down the cup and get back to work. There's always more to build, more to learn, more to become. And now, finally, I know that I'm the one who gets to decide what that looks like. Not my mother, not my father, not anyone else. Just me, Ellie, finally, irrevocably, undeniably, me.